It is 5:30. Well, first order is to call the meeting to order for West Fargo Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Second item of business is the approval of the order of the agenda. Take a motion.
I so move to approve.
Second, anybody?
Second.
We moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay. Next item is the approval of the minutes from September 10th as published digitally.
I move to approve the minutes of September 10th.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Next item on the regular agenda, number one and only, it's a public hearing, A24-27, zoning ordinance amendments to Title 4 regarding residential lot coverage. Sankey.
Thank you. This application was received in order to allow for an increase of maximum lot coverage in some residential zoning districts by 5%, as well as amending the definition of lot coverage. Following discussion during the September 16th City Commission meeting where a property owner requested maximum lot coverage in the single-family dwelling district be increased from 30 to 35%, the West Fargo City Commission directed staff to amend residential zoning district regulations relating to lot coverage. The proposed amendments seek to increase maximum lot coverage in residential districts by 5%. The definition of lot coverage is the amount of land covered or permitted to be covered by principal buildings, accessory buildings, and required parking spaces, which is similar to other ordinances within the state. The amendment to the definition would be to remove required parking spaces. Uncovered porches or decks are not included in this calculation. However, covered enclosed porches are also included in lot coverage, which is why the individual had come before the City Commission. Lot coverages vary substantially across zoning districts throughout the state, and West Fargo's residential districts currently range from 15 to 45%. Proposed changes would pertain to the residential districts within the large single-family dwelling district, the R1A single-family dwelling district, the R1B special single-family dwelling district, the R1 one and two family dwelling district, the R2 limited multiple dwelling, and the R3 multiple dwellings, as well as the R5 mobile home manufactured subdivision districts. Specific text amendments are attached to the staff report, as well as this table showing existing and proposed changes. This is a public hearing. I'm available to answer any questions. Again, it's just across the board, a 5% increase to lot coverage.
Thank you. It is public hearing. With that, I'll open this up to comments or input from the public. Is there any? Seeing none, close that section. I got one question.
Okay.
Why?
Why?
Right.
We were directed by the City Commission.
Why?
Because an individual built a house in one of the single-family dwelling districts, or a contractor, and his original plans showed covered porches. And we consider...
So for one individual, we're going to go through and we're going to change the entire code.
Right. So then he changed his plans and included a pergola, which is an open roof line. So
How does our zoning requirements and the coverage percentages compare to our neighboring municipalities?
what did we come up with? They vary quite a bit. So we had, what was it, Fargo was, can you recall, Aaron?
Yeah, I can chime in here. The city of Fargo ranges, I think, 35 to 45 for the most part.
For the same type of zonings?
For their most common single-family zoning districts. Other jurisdictions that I think Lisa looked at, Bismarck, Grand Forks, Minot, and Mandan, I think, had up to 50% for some of their higher density single-family districts.
Yeah, I was just asking more about the immediate neighboring.
Sure.
Because that's the competition, so to speak.
Yeah, they seem to be fairly comparable.
Yeah.
So their lowest is 35?
For the city of Fargo, they do have some zoning districts, low-density zoning districts that probably are above 35, but those are pretty rare. You won't really find a whole lot of those across the city. For the most part, it's 35 to 45, I believe.
And
Right.
what we were finding when we reviewed our permits, because our planning will review the residential building permits when they come through, that if somebody builds a slab on grade Rambler and wants to put the covered porch on the back and the front, they come pretty close to that 30% lot coverage, and then they aren't able to
I
add a accessory building in the future, or,
understand,
so.
but it's 5% is actually an increase of 12% from 30 to 35%, 35 to 40%. It's roughly a 12% increase in the coverage. And so on a lot that is 2,500 square feet, that's another 300 square feet, doing rough math, don't check me, of building we're allowing. And that could be considered substantial, especially if you have situations now where people already built, and then the neighboring property now all of a sudden has a different target or limit. As you can probably hear, I don't understand the purpose. If it is to align with other communities and eliminate any competitive differences, we're trying to attract builders and things like that for development. I get it, but if we're talking about to allow for an individual, we're going to change the whole code. I don't understand that.
Maybe just a few comments from staff on that. I think there was discussion with the individual who was running up against the 30% threshold there, and there was discussion on they could apply for a variance if they so choose. Generally, staff does not recommend a variance unless there is a true hardship that they can demonstrate, just because the variance is a pretty high bar to get over for an applicant. And so, in staff's view, looking at the neighboring jurisdictions and then also comparing our current ordinances to the comprehensive plan, there is a increased emphasis on some increased density, you get some economies of scale with cost of infrastructure and different things with development with that as well. And so in staff's mind, the proposed amendment is in line with the comprehensive plan, and there's no concerns from stormwater standpoint. The impervious surface requirement doesn't change. So you can have up to 70% impervious surface coverage for a lot, which is I guess relevant in terms of some of the stormwater runoff stuff. So that was some of the thought process anyway that went into staff support of the direction from the city commission.
And the setbacks remain the same, so we aren't proposing to change anything closer to property lines.
Do the other cities that you looked at include covered porches in their lot coverage percentages?
Some do. I think most of them do, because there's the potential that they will eventually become an addition. And if there was wording, so once you have a covered porch with the support posts and the foundational requirements, that eventually it'll get turned into a 3-season porch or an addition, and it'll become part of the main structure. So
Yeah. Still struggle with the motivation to make a change to something as fundamental and basic as this. And this is probably one of the more, what's the word I'm looking for? When we look at different zoning, percentage of coverage of buildings is a big factor, and the other one being height of the structure is allowed and things, and setbacks, right? Which affect the look, feel of communities or areas that have specific zoning. So when we change these things, it, I think is gonna be impactful. And so therefore, I still don't see the reason or the motivation or the drive to make a change as, it's like changing an amendment on the Constitution almost. It's a, you know, could have a lot of consequences. So that's why I'm, I don't know, questioning, perhaps. Commissioners, you guys have any questions?
Was it your impression from the city commission meeting that they essentially decided that this is what was going to be done?
The commission just directed us to look at what other cities,
Just directed you to
look at what other cities are doing and to look at a zoning ordinance amendment based on the concerns from the person that had come before them, so. And he was given options, again, the variants that Aaron had mentioned, so, but those are pretty hard to get. You have to prove that you are special and unique from everyone else and that it was something that was beyond your control, that you didn't cause the situation, so.
Exactly, which is, again, why I consider this a pretty significant change. There's a big hurdle going over it. Why are we moving the bar?
So I guess, to respond to that question, in staff's opinion, rather than allowing, one individual to have a larger lot coverage, in order to allow that opportunity to everybody in the city, that was the reason for looking at just amending the ordinance, not just in the zoning district, but in all of our zoning districts or all of our residential zoning districts, and taking a look at how they compare to the other communities. And also just always, asking why does that, why is the 30% that it is? How does that compare with the comprehensive plan, which is, ultimately what the zoning code is intended to advance? And so that's kind of the rationale there. As different builders have different models for homes, if they want a certain size home on a certain lot with that 30% coverage, they would need to plat larger sized lots in order to get the same sized home on a
Yes.
Development. So
Is this tied in any way, shape, or form to a envisioned development that would benefit from this change?
no specific developments, no.
Right, it changes the economics of land value, fundamental.
And in staff's mind, it's advantageous, to allow some additional density in relation to the infrastructure required to service some of these neighborhoods. And that's from our comprehensive plan.
Are there any other changes regarding minimum lot sizes?
Just the ones that we're talking about, and then there's the definition of lot coverage. We're removing as required, the section that says required parking spaces, because when this ordinance was written, not everybody had a garage. And so, required parking spaces were included in the definition section. Now, your required parking is within the garage, so everybody's got at least a 2-stall garage. So we're taking that section out of the ordinance definition.
We're taking the requirement for the parking spaces out. Are we
The-
requiring then garages?
Well, it talks, you're still required to have parking. But the lot, under the definition of lot coverage, there's a line that says that lot coverage includes required parking spaces. So if you build a Rambler, say circa 1978, when nobody had a garage, a detached garage, you still had to provide parking on the property. So, but parking's included in the lot coverage because it's part of the garage now. So, and we cover that under impervious surface
We're
requirements.
not really changing anything, we're just just kind of modernizing it?
Yes, yes.
I've got no more questions.
I concur on existing neighborhoods, you'd worry about all of a sudden, if all your neighbors decided to fill in that other 5%, could change existing neighborhood personalities a little bit, but I can't envision that happening more than one house here, one house there. As long as they don't change the setbacks, I have a little challenge with sometimes I think the setbacks are too close. So building, but we're not changing that. Our buildings are pretty close to each other.
Heights setbacks are not being affected by this change.
No.
Correct.
So as far as the extra 5%, I don't envision it being a huge issue overall as far as existing neighborhoods changing their personality, but I certainly could see it like, say, in new developments, they're gonna try to maximize as much property as they can put on a lot, but, so personally, I don't have an overall problem with it, but as long as they're not changing setbacks.
So that 5%, can they change the setback? Or is that?
No, it's just the lot coverage. So, single family, your house still has to be 6 feet from the side, 25 from the front, and 30 from the rear.
If there's no other arguments or discussion points, I would accept the motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the zoning ordinance amendments as presented. Any further discussion before vote? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign? Aye. That's me. Motion passed. I disagree. Next, are there any non-agenda items?
Here are just a couple of quick updates for you guys. All right, so first one, you may recall on your last agenda, last month, we had the request to the City Commission to initiate the Growth Area Master Plan and to issue the RFP. That was heard and enacted upon by the City Commission last night. So we will be looking to publish an RFP for the Growth Area Master Plan here later this week. The Park District, in addition to funds that the city would be putting in for this effort, they've offered to put in another $30,000 towards the Growth Area Master Plan. And so that'll be on the Park Board agenda here tomorrow night. So we're gonna wait for them to take action before actually publishing the RFP. So an update for you on there. Proposals will be due about mid-November with contract negotiations following shortly thereafter with the hope of getting a contract in front of the City Commission for approval sometime in January of 2025. So just to give you an update on where that project is at. And then another second update for you is just to let you know, let the Planning and Zoning Commission know that the City Commission also directed staff to take a look at drafting a short-term rental ordinance and licensing program.
Is this something for like Airbnb type things?
Correct, yep. So originally, the City Commission directed staff to kind of take a look at some options, and staff presented those options to the City Commission, and ultimately, they further directed staff to go ahead and draft an ordinance and some recommendations for licensing. So it's not too dissimilar from the chicken ordinance, where an ordinance was drafted and the licensing apparatus was
That was my favorite.
procedure, thank you, put in place. So we'll be doing something similar, and so you're likely to see something on your agenda in the not too distant future, really.
So we want to impose a licensing requirement for short-term rentals of homes?
That's the idea, yeah.
Do other communities do that?
Some do.
Is Fargo a hotspot for Airbnbs?
It's all relative, I suppose, but,
I guess when the hockey tournament season isn't. Or wrestling. Okay. Very good. Interesting. Anything else?
oh, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, last item, adjourn. Come on, Mike, second it.
All right, second.
It's been moved to second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Meeting adjourned. What's the over-under that some developer comes in now and puts together a plan, and he's a buddy of the city guy who proposed this change?
I think it's unlikely.
That is what I first thought when I read this.